يا أيها الذين آمنوا هل أدلكم على تجارة تنجيكم من عذاب أليم تؤمنون بالله ورسوله وتجاهدون في سبيل الله بأموالكم وأنفسكم ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون يغفر لكم ذنوبكم ويدخلكم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ومساكن طيبة في جنات عدن ذلك الفوز العظيم وأخرى تحبونها نصر من الله وفتح قريب وبشر المؤمنين صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah. Ladies and gentlemen, today's session is a continuation of SECP's commitment to keeping our officers at the forefront of knowledge, particularly as the global financial landscape undergoes a rapid and profound digital transformation. So before we proceed further, before we proceed to our distinguished guest for his presentation, it is my great privilege to request the Honorable Chairman SECP to come forward for a few opening remarks. Please welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I welcome Dr. Hassan, respected commissioners, and my dear colleagues. I'm very excited to have these sessions. As you know, SECP is one of the biggest corporate regulator. Markets changing, crypto is coming in, blockchain technology is coming in. People are talking about tokenization of debt, tokenization of securities. It's all uncharted territory. I'm quite intrigued by it. Dr. Hassan is an expert in blockchain technology, and he's written a book on it. I think as a regulator, we need to be cutting edge when it comes to developing the market. In the last 16 weeks, we have made every attempt and every effort in insurance and BFC securities market to move things forward, to remove the obstacle, to facilitate the market, to engage wider community. And this is also a step in that direction. Working in UK, my experience of working with insurance and financial sector experts was they were very skillful. And I believe that SECP and SECP's employees should also be equally skillful and maybe develop excellence in the field that they're working in. So without further ado, I won't hold you from Dr. Naveed Hassan. I thank you for joining us here today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your vision with us. Ladies and gentlemen, now this is the time that we are waiting for. I'm really truly privileged to welcome our very distinguished professor, Dr. Naveed Hassan. Dr. Naveed Hassan is an associate professor at the Syed Babar Ali School of Science and Engineering at LUMS. Dr. Hassan holds a bachelor's degree in avionics engineering from the College of Aeronautical Engineering, Risalpur, and both his master's and doctoral degrees in electrical engineering with specialization in digital and wireless communications from France. He has also been serving as a visiting assistant professor at the Singapore University of Technology and Design. At LUMS, Dr. Hassan leads the Center for Digital Assets Research and is among Pakistan's foremost voices on blockchain technology, cryptocurrency markets, and the tokenization of financial assets. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Dr. Naveed Hassan.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure and honor to be here and presenting to you the cryptocurrency and the tokenization landscape. So this is a topic that interests a lot of people today, and I hope I will be able to explain you some stuff. Thank you. So I hope I will be able to explain you what this technology is, what this hype is, what are the key players, where the role of the regulator lies, what the technology is about. So if we see the cryptocurrency landscape, it all started in 2008, 2009, late 2009. And this is the market cap. The yellow one is the Bitcoin evolution. This is the market cap of Bitcoin. Then the blue one on top, this is Ethereum, and then the rest of the cryptocurrencies, they are on top in this light color shade. So it all started from few cents, no value, and then gradually it picked up. There are some milestones on the way. For example, the 1 billion mark, the Bitcoin, it hit in 2013. Okay, from virtually worthless, nothing, to 1 billion mark in just 4 to 5 years. Then the Ethereum, it's the second most traded cryptocurrency, and it's also programmable. It introduced some new ideas, new concepts. It was launched in 2015. Then the first peak bull run here in 2017-18, where the price of the Bitcoin, it topped $20,000. Then came the crash, and then it scaled new heights. And after that, there was this exchange, FTX exchange, which collapsed. Okay? It was a major scandal in the cryptocurrency landscape, in the cryptocurrency world, when FTX collapsed. The sentiment was very down. The regulators came in, then the new regulations were enacted. Then we saw another strong activity. The Bitcoin ETF, they got exchange traded funds, they got approved. The value, it peaked. Then the Genius Act, and maybe few of you know about it. It is about the regulation of the stable coins. Okay, I will explain what the stable coins are on the next slides. So the Genius Act, but you can see that the peak was hit here in 2024-25, when all this regulation was happening. The Trump factor, it was also involved, and the all-time high is around $4.55 trillion. So that's a highest market cap that the cryptocurrency achieved. Then if we look at the top 10 cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin leads from the front. The market cap of Bitcoin is 1.3 trillion today. Okay, it goes up and down. The last time I presented, it was around $1.6 trillion, but now it dropped, and it's around $1.3 trillion. Ethereum is $190 billion. It enables the smart contracts. It enables the programmability. The third one is important, Tether. Tether, it's also around 187 billion, and this Tether is a stable coin. It's not a normal cryptocurrency. It is counted as a cryptocurrency, but it's a stable coin. Then we have the BNB, the Binance Exchange. They have this token which trades at, and it has a market cap of $77 billion. And USD coin, another stable coin, and Solana, Tron, and here at number 9 is an interesting thing, Figure. Okay, Figure, this is a technology company that does the real world asset tokenization. Okay, so they are into this HELOC business, home equity line of credit business, which is called second mortgage. They also have an IPO, and they achieved this first $19 billion in last 4 to 5 years. Okay, so this shows you the trend that a company which is based on this home loans, home equity loans, line of credit, so it has also now in the top 10 of the crypto landscape. The last one is interesting, Dogecoin. It started as a meme coin, but it held its value, and it also has a market cap of around $13 billion. So a lot of activity is happening. If we compare the crypto market cap with the major GDPs of major countries, US and China, of course, they are at the very top. But Germany, Japan, India, for example, $4.15 trillion. This is the GDP of India. And at its peak, the cryptocurrency market cap was even higher than the GDP of some of the major world economies. So compared to that, the GDP of Pakistan sits at around 400 to 450 billion dollars. So we are way behind. And all this value, the important thing is you can notice that it is created in the last 10 to 15 years. So $2.2 trillion, this number keeps on changing, but this is the potential that there is in all these cryptocurrencies. So $2.2 trillion created in 15 to 16 years just based on the cryptography and the sound mathematics and all these algorithms which run the show. Right, so this is the Bitcoin price fluctuation in US dollar for the last 1 year. Over the last 12 months, this is how the value has changed, and the peak came in October 2025, 124,000 US dollars. Currently, it is trading at around 60,000 US dollar. But for us Pakistanis, I show them another chart which they can relate to better compared to the price in the US dollar. So this is the price of Bitcoin in crores. Okay, so at its peak, one Bitcoin was worth 3.5 crore. Okay, and currently the value is around 1.7 crore. Okay, how much it is, to put it into context? Assets, we view gold, silver, plots, cars. If you have one Bitcoin, then in 3.5 crore, that was the peak, but in 1.7 crore, you can imagine you can buy one or two cars, okay? Civic or BYD. So last time I presented, I showed them Civic, but someone said, oh, buy electric car. So BYD cars, you can buy one or two cars. Then gold, at the current rate, you can buy almost 38 tolas of gold. Silver, around 28 kg of silver, and the plot prices, you know better what are the prices in Islamabad, so you can relate it. If you have one or two Bitcoin, if someone has, how many plots they can buy. Okay, this is just to put things into context. And on the first slide, I showed you the pizza day, Bitcoin pizza day. So that is also an interesting historical anecdote where there was a guy, the early adopter of Bitcoin. He spent 10,000 Bitcoin in 2010 and he bought two Papa John pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. And in today's world, that will be around $1 billion, more than $1 billion. And in that whole year, he spent 1 lakh Bitcoin eating pizzas. Because at that time, the price of the Bitcoin was fraction of cents. Okay, so but gradually it gained value. You can see it's cyclic. Sometimes the price goes down because some of it is speculative, but it has held steady. The price has increased from cents to $124,000, and then it is still trading around $60,000. There is a hard cap on the number of Bitcoin that can ever be mined, 21 million. So if there is more interest, if there are no more Bitcoins mined than the existing pool, the price will go up. I'm not saying you should do the trading in Bitcoin. I'm just showing you all the historical perspective and the picture, how it evolved. So what Bitcoin solved? Okay, the major problem that Bitcoin solved was the double spending. So in an era where all this internet and everything, and it came about, Amazon and everything in the dot-com bubble that burst around 2099, 2000, and then people moved to the digital world. So there was a need for digital payments. There was no reliable solution to prevent the double spending. So what is double spending? Double spending means if it's a digital information, if someone has a Bitcoin, it's just a piece of digital information. And we can copy the digital information as many times as we want. So for example, Double spending means if I give you some digital currency, digital money, cryptocurrency, and I can give it to some other guy as well. The same thing. Who will prevent this double spending? Okay, without involving intermediaries, without involving anyone else, the trusted parties, दरमियान में अगर कोई ना हो, if there is no one, why we cannot spend money in our bank twice? Because there is a bank that ensures that we spend our money only once. So if there is no one to control it and we are entirely doing it digitally online, how we can prevent the double spending? So Bitcoin solved this problem. And the solution is really very simple, very, very simple. So what is the solution? So there is only single source of truth. You broadcast everything. For example, if I am giving Bitcoin to someone, I tell everyone, I make a transaction, then I broadcast it. Everyone in the network knows that I have spent my Bitcoin. There are obviously rules and protocols that we have to follow. And the ownership is validated by the nodes in the network. And there is this one true ledger which records all the transactions, which records all the transfer of the ownership that is happening from one person to another. So the nodes in the network, these nodes, they ensure that there is no double spending. For example, if Alice has spent the coin, Bitcoin, and given it to Bob, then that transaction is recorded and all the record is available for everyone to audit and see. Okay, so this brings the trust. And then obviously the chaining, the hashing, these are the mathematical concepts. They secure the blockchain. So once the transaction is recorded in a block, okay, the block is hashed and it is linked, it points to the parent block, and then a chain develops all the way from the first block, which is called the Genesis block, to the current block. Okay, and all this data is recorded, all the transactions are there for everyone to see. No one can change the contents of any block which is inside the blockchain, because if we do so, the hashes don't match. So that's where the cryptography part comes in. The hashes don't match. So everyone will know that there is something wrong with the transaction, with the block, and we can also point out who made that kind of change. And the data is distributed. No one controls this network. So this is the solution that the Bitcoin provided to the double spending problem. But it also created its own world. For example, Bitcoin is recognized inside this Bitcoin blockchain. So Bitcoin blockchain records all this truth. It is a ledger that records the transfership and the ownership of all the Bitcoin. It does not know about the external world. बाहर की दुनिया में क्या हो रहा है, Bitcoin doesn't know, doesn't care. Okay, the Bitcoin blockchain is recording what is happening on its own blockchain, how the ownership of Bitcoin is changing, how the new Bitcoin are being minted, how they are transferred, who owns the different Bitcoin, in which blocks they did what transactions. All this record is inside the Bitcoin blockchain. Okay, it is, we know from outside world what is happening on the Bitcoin world, inside the Bitcoin world, about the Bitcoin world, Bitcoin itself. It does not care about whether its price in terms of US dollar is crashing or not. If someone owns one BTC on the Bitcoin blockchain, still owns one BTC. If its value is $124,000 or a few fraction of dollar cents, it doesn't care. Okay, the ownership is one BTC. So after that, few other interesting developments happened. For example, Ethereum, I told you it was launched in 2015 and it made more modifications. For example, it brought the programmability into the crypto world. The term smart contracts, maybe some of you have heard about it, know it. So this is an arbitrary piece of code where you can code all the clauses, all the agreements, and then this agreement is executed by the blockchain. It runs on the blockchain. No one can modify the code. No one can modify it, because again, it runs on the blockchain. So Ethereum brought this in 2015. Then Solana, BNB chain, they are less decentralized, but then they brought the faster and cheaper transactions. But the key message of this slide is every native asset, for example, Bitcoin, for example, Ether, for example, Solana, BNB, Coin, they are known inside their own worlds. Okay, so they are recognized and protected by their own blockchain. So Bitcoin blockchain provides protection only to the BTC. Ethereum blockchain, it provides protection to ETH, which is its native currency. So every blockchain provides protection to its own native asset. Now, one slide on this Ethereum. Ethereum brought programmability. What a smart contract. Smart contract, it is code that lives on the blockchain and it runs exactly as it is written. So once someone deploys a smart contract on the blockchain, no one can change it. The code takes over and it will always, whenever any node in the blockchain network runs that code, it will check the conditions and it will execute as the conditions are in that code. No one can change the code once it's on the blockchain. Okay, so smart contract deployed on the blockchain enables a lot of things. Okay, and it also, Ethereum also has this thing that it can interface, it can take data, it can exchange data with the real world. For example, a smart contract can know what is the price of Bitcoin today, what is the price of Ether today, what is the price of some other commodity like gold or whatever. We can provide this information in a certain way to a smart contract and any blockchain that supports smart contract. But this idea was introduced in 2015 by Ethereum for the first time. And these smart contracts, they are key enabler of tokenization and the DeFi. Real world asset tokenization, stable coin, everything is enabled. One important piece of component is this token smart contract, because without this tokenization, this smart contract, we cannot go towards a tokenization. So from cryptocurrency to tokenization to real world asset tokenization, smart contracts, the programmability, they are the key enablers. Now, what's the opportunity here? Why everyone is interested here? So now we have two worlds, the digital world, where we have Bitcoin, where we have the blockchain, where we have the Ethereum, where we have the smart contracts. And this digital world, we know from experience, from their characteristics that the blockchain networks, they run 24/7, they bring programmability, they bring automation, they cut the middleman, they cut the cost, they bring all the efficiency, right? And that figure example, the HELOC example, I was reading somewhere that to process these home equity line of credit loans, they have built their own blockchain and they process it in $700 to $800. And a comparative product that is launched by the conventional banks, their costs are around 10,000 to 11,000 US dollars. So it's an order of magnitude reduction in the cost that the blockchains provide us. And then there is all this value of the Bitcoin, because most people, some people also treat it as a commodity, as a digital gold. If it is stuck on that chain, how can you make it more programmable? How can you use it to generate yield, or maybe to use it in some other products? You do not want to lose the ownership of your digital assets, but you want to make them more productive. How we can do that? Again, that's an opportunity. Then this is the whole world of real assets, the cash, the gold, the bonds, the stocks, and all this stuff. It's hundreds of trillions of dollars of worth that exist on the conventional ledgers. Okay. So 1.3 trillion trapped in the Bitcoin world, then the programmable blockchains, 500 to 600 billion dollars, then the real world assets, okay, the gold, the cash, the everything, the stocks, it's stuck in its own world. So a dollar in a bank, it is not automatically available on the blockchain. A Bitcoin that exists, it is not available in the banking system. Okay? So we can move the value from one world to another world without losing the trust, protecting the consumers, ensuring that there is no double spending, there are no frauds. Okay, this is the challenge, but this also provides a lot of opportunity. So how we move and unlock the value of all these assets, how we move them from one world to another world. And the next few slides will explain this process, how we do it, how in current practice, how people are doing it around the world. Right, so the main idea is building a bridge. The real world asset, the gold, the fiat currency, the dollar, the PKR, it's a physical thing, sort of physical thing. We cannot move it to the blockchain. But what we want to do, we transfer the economic value of these assets by building a bridge to a programmable blockchain. to a destination blockchain which is more programmable. So why we want to do that? Because it brings programmability. It makes my asset more programmable. I can use it in the services which are not accessible to it in the real world. Okay, I can unlock a lot of things, DeFi, the decentralized financing protocols. Then the the reduction in the cost, the automation, the transparency, the auditability, all these things, all these new use cases, they also emerge if you move the value to a programmable blockchain. So the asset continues to exist in its own world, wherever it lives, on whatever books it is, but we are interested in moving the economic value of that asset to a programmable blockchain in a trustable way, okay? So that we are able to unlock the financial potential of our real world asset. Now, here comes the problem again. I told you that Bitcoin solved the double spending problem. If I have a Bitcoin, it's a digital information. I cannot, if I have spent it, the Bitcoin blockchain is the source of truth for everyone. They can see, okay, this guy has already spent the Bitcoin in that transaction and given it to that guy, transferred already, so no, he doesn't possess the Bitcoin anymore. But if you are moving the value from real world to the blockchain, again, this problem reappears. So what prevents an issuer, for example, a guy who says, I have this US dollar or gold, and I am going to give you a token on blockchain A. So the same guy can create another representation on another blockchain. So what can stop someone from doing this kind of thing? So again, the problem of double spending, it reappears. The problem of multiple representation appears again in the tokenization problem. I hope you can see the problem reappearing, because the asset continues to exist in its own world, and I am creating a representation on a blockchain. So if someone creates representation on blockchain A by building a bridge and issuing tokens on that blockchain, the same guy can issue tokens on another blockchain. For example, Solana blockchain, he can create more tokens backed by the same asset. Okay, on two blockchains, the same token is representing the value. So it's not one-to-one for the assets. I have $1, I create $1 token on Ethereum, another $1 token on Solana, and I sell it to two guys. So the value now moves to two chains. For $1 worth of value, I am getting $2 worth, which is sort of wrong because it is not a true representation of the value. So how we solve this double spending problem? How do we solve it? So enforcing the global uniqueness, this is a real challenge. The solution, it needs three ingredients, three components. The first one to understand is custody. The second one we have to keep in mind is the smart contracts, which bring the programmability and helps us move the asset to the programmable blockchain. And the third is the tokenization. This one-to-one tagging, the value should be represented, backed by the real asset, and it should be one-to-one correspondence, right? So the custody is most important. So what happens? There are some more players that emerge. So when we have the cryptocurrency, when we have Bitcoin, when we have Ethereum, we have a blockchain. I showed you this is just a distributed, decentralized set of nodes that is verifying the transactions, doing all this stuff. But when we are doing tokenization, then inevitably in the model that is prevalent today, and I am only presenting the model that people are more interested in, okay? So this is the centralized custody model. What happens? There is an issuer. The issuer is the interface with the customer. The issuer will take the real world asset from the customer, okay? And then the issuer is responsible for building the bridge and creating a representation and developing and creating a token on the destination blockchain. And it is also the responsibility of the issuer to hold the asset, the actual asset, physical asset in safe custody. So there is the role of custodian. The issuer and custodian, generally they are two independent entities, right? The custodian keeps the physical custody of things. If we have a gold, then the custodian can put it in a vault. If someone is issuing stable coins by taking the dollars from the customers, the issuer will deposit those dollars. Maybe some of them he can keep in cash, or some of them he can put in bank. So then the bank becomes a custodian, right? So there is an issuer, there is a custodian, and the third thing is this smart contract, which is deployed on the blockchain by the issuer, and the issuer mints and burns the tokens corresponding to the number of dollars or the actual asset that the issuer holds in the vault, right? The issuers and the custodians, they increasingly fall under the purview of the financial regulators. Okay? So whoever is creating this value chain, moving the real world assets to the programmable blockchains, they are the physical entities. In most of the cases, they are the companies, right? So if we take the example of stable coins, so what is the idea? The stable coin, the customer deposits USD, physical dollars. Okay, there are no examples, no issuers for the PKR stable coins yet, but maybe in future someone could emerge. But USD, we see this for the euros, they are also stable coin issuers. So issuer is a company. The issuer takes the physical dollars from the customer, builds a bridge, deploys a token smart contract on the blockchain, a programmable blockchain, then maintains this one-to-one peg. Okay. So the number of dollars held with the issuer that he deposits with the custodian, they should be equal to the total number of tokens that exist on the blockchain, that exist in the smart contract. And then this smart contract, it keeps track on the chain, it keeps track of the ownership of all the tokens, who owns how many tokens. But in the physical world, whether those tokens are backed by the real dollars or not, it is the responsibility of the issuer and the custodian. And that's where the regulations comes in, and that's where the Genius Act, which was introduced in 2024-25, it was important because it made sure that they publish proof of reserves regularly, they are auditable, and the regulators can see whether they have those dollars in the bank, those reserves in the bank or not. Okay. So one example, USDC, this circle group of companies, it issues USDC, the stable coin. It's a stable coin. It's a company, it also launched its IPO, it is listed on the stock exchange as well. And its primary business is issuing these stable coins. Okay, and it's the second biggest issuer, stablecoin issuer, uh, worth 77 or 78 billion dollars, right? So it's a company, a normal company. It has an IPO. It is traded on the stock exchange as well. But what's the business? It issues stablecoin. How it does that? It maintains a one-to-one peg, and for the customers, it gives them the tokens on the blockchain. So who makes sure that there is one-to-one correspondence? It's a primary responsibility of this issuer, which is kept under check through the Genius Act and all the regulations that are enacted now in the US. So settlement is available to the institutional customers, but the retail customers, they go to the secondary market. For example, there are a lot of USDC which are available on different exchanges. If I want, as a retail customer, I have to go to the secondary market. I can just deposit them real PKR or the US dollar, and then I can get USDC, the USD coins, and then I can use them in all the online transactions wherever there is a need. Then the real world asset tokenization, it also follows the same principle. So in the real world asset tokenization, if there is a bond, if there is a gold, then there has to be an issuer. Now the issuer will lock this asset inside a legal wrapper, which is called special purpose vehicle, SPV. Okay, it's a legal entity. The asset, the physical, the asset legally is owned by this thing which acts as a custodian. And then the tokens are issued on the chain in the same way on the smart contract. A separate smart contract is deployed by this issuer on the chain, and the tokens are issued against the asset which is being tokenized. So this is the process, right? So there is huge potential, but you can see the risk is accumulating because this here, the blockchain, the trust, everything, it is for the tokens, but whether those tokens are actually backed by the real world assets or by the US dollar or the PKR currency, that the blockchain inherently does not know. Okay, so that is the job of the regulators, that is the job of the companies which are here because they do this for a business. So the trust is also important for them. The business is also important for these guys. Okay. So there are legal and regulatory challenges, but the use cases are emerging very fast because it's a big opportunity of trillions of dollars. The problem is not the technology. The problem is the trust and the regulations and how these are managed, the risks, how they are managed, right? So one-to-one peg, this is very important because under collateralization means you are issuing more tokens, you are claiming and gaining benefit from more value which does not exist in your account. And if something like this happens, the trust very quickly evaporates. If the peg is not maintained, the stable coins particularly, they lose their value very rapidly. One such recent example is the USDC depegging. It happened around March 2023. So they had their dollars, $3.3 billion reserves they had in the Silicon Valley Bank in California. The bank collapsed. It was not the problem of the issuer. The circle was very transparent in its communication. Okay, the reserves were held in a bank. The bank collapsed. Circle couldn't do anything about it, and the value, the depegging happened. The value dropped to 0.087 dollar cents. So the issuer and custodian, they can fail independently. That's why they are treated separate entity in most of the regulations and the jurisdictions, right? And how the confidence was restored, again, the government had to step in, the regulators had to give confidence to the markets, and then the stability was achieved after few days, because then the government said that we will back, or we will whatever has collapsed, the government rescued, bailed out this bank once again. So in summary, we have all these assets, the real world assets presenting huge opportunity for us. Then all these new players which are behind the scenes, because general public, they see, okay, this is cryptocurrency, the blockchain, and they know about these words. They don't know about the mechanism that is required for bridging the other players that emerge, what are the responsibilities of those players, how the regulators can control and manage these players, because without them in this custody model, we cannot have the tokenization. So we have the issuer, we have the custodian, they have to maintain one-to-one peg. It is their responsibility to create one-to-one correspondence of the asset that they are holding in their reserves and issue as many tokens and take the tokens out of circulation when their reserves fall below the actual number of tokens that they have issued on the blockchain. So you can see the risk, it accumulates as we move the value from real world towards the digital world. There are more players, more chances of failure at different places. One example I showed you, the circle as an issuer was very transparent. Its reserves, they were audited. It actually had those dollars in the bank failed, could do nothing. So traditional financial institutions, initially they rejected the blockchain cryptocurrency, but now they are embracing it. Why? Because they have realized that blockchain is an efficient technology. Okay? It can bring in more investors, more customers, more users. So there is a real opportunity for growth for them, for their businesses and everything. Okay? And for the cryptocurrencies, again, because the main financial institutions, they are adopting it, so they are gaining the mainstream adoption. Okay, so it's a win-win sort of situation for both things. the mainstream financial institutions as well as the crypto currency markets and everything. So what this means for Pakistan, and that's where I will conclude my presentation, and then we will have a discussion if you have some questions. So the first thing, in Pakistan, there is a lot of activity happening. We meet with a lot of banks, and a major near-time use case that everyone is interested in is the remittances. So Pakistani economy is mainly dependent sort of to get the dollars, we rely on the remittances. So remittances, the banks are involved, the SWIFT system, it is an old system and they charge a lot of money. So there are some studies that if we move to the stable coins, if there is this mechanism where the US dollars are instead moved using the cryptocurrency and the stable coin rails, 1 to 2 or maybe more $1 billion can be saved, or even more can be saved, right? It will also be useful for the customers who are sending small amount of money to their loved ones back in Pakistan. So major banks, they are investing a lot of resources. They are interested in the remittance use case. And we have examples. Philippines, they also depend on remittances. They have issued their own stable coin and they are moving a lot of money. The remittances are happening on the stable coins. Then a regulated market brings trust. For majority of the consumers, the retail consumers particularly, if they know that there is a regulator who can protect their interests, they are more confident. Okay, and in Pakistan, where I have seen people, they don't know a lot about the cryptocurrencies and everything, but in the chain analysis, many of you may know that Pakistan is third in the adoption of the cryptocurrencies. So for these small retail users, it's very important that we have the regulations intact, we have the regulators, but it's again an evolving field. The real risk it lies with the issuers, custodians, and the exchanges. The math and the cryptography is very, very sound, right? There are some concerns. I was talking to, I talk to a lot of people. They say quantum computers, but there are solutions around that as well. Okay, so the cryptography and the mathematics is safe. In real world, the issuer, custodians, exchanges, how we bring them under the regulations, how we make sure that they play with the rules, they ensure the pegging, they have the reserves when they are doing the tokenization. Right? A token is only as safe as the reserves it is backing and the transparency of the company or the entity that is holding it. And the open policy question, when does a token, it becomes a security. So these are the real open sort of questions which people are searching answers to, right? So with these thoughts, I will conclude my presentation and I'm open to questions and discussions. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Saab. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका. Guys, the change is here. मैं डॉक्टर साहब की जब ये सुन रहा था और इनसे कुछ डिस्कशन भी कल हुई मेरी हुई. So that is the biggest fear of a regulator as well. We are adopting without knowing what it is. Am I right? That's where I want to connect the audience with you. Sir, we are with us. असद बैठे हुए यहाँ पे. असद लोग साइड मैडम हैं जो कि लॉ को देखती हैं. हमारे पास भट्टी साहब सुपरविजन से हैं, लॉ के लोग हैं, एजुकेशन के लोग हैं, कुछ इकोनॉमिस्ट हैं, कुछ लॉयर्स हैं, कुछ अकाउंटेंट्स हैं. इन सब के अपने अपने फियर्स होंगे. एंटी मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग में मैं देख रहा हूँ शहजाद साहब यहाँ बैठे हुए हैं. और हाउ दे कैन कनेक्ट टू ऑल योर डिस्कशन. इसमें 2 पॉइंट्स जो मैंने खासतौर पे जस्ट लोगों का इंटरेस्ट के लिए कि वो क्वेश्चन आपसे शुरू कर सकें. एक शरिया बहुत बड़ा इशू है क्योंकि 26th अमेंडमेंट के बाद by 2027 we all have to convert the financial system into a Sharia compliant system. So in the coming days, can we say the cryptocurrency or the tokenization thing can fall in the Sharia compliant regulations or not? This is one question. The other thing is data is the new currency. Can we declare data as a new asset class, adopting as a conventional financial system as well as in the Sharia financial system? So these are just my 2-3 things, and we can start with Honorable Chairman Saab. Sir, we would like you to actually ask the first question so that public can feel more safer.
Like your first question about Sharia. Sharia is directly connected with the assets underneath. So I'll leave the expert to answer the question.
Okay, am I audible? Okay. Again, this question of Sharia in Pakistan, we are all very much interested in investing in assets. Most of us and majority of everyone, they are interested in this Sharia, and now the government has also mandated it. When it comes to the asset tokenization, obviously there is an asset, there is something tangible that is behind what we have. For example, if we are tokenizing gold, so gold is an asset. Uh, as Muslims, we can own gold, and then if its value is represented in 1-to-1 ratio on the blockchain, perhaps we will be fine. But again, I'm not expert on this topic. These things are evolving. But for the asset tokenization, I believe we will be on a much safer side because there is something real, something tangible based on which we are deriving some economic value on the blockchain.
सर सर हम स्टार्ट करें थे क्वेश्चन सर अगर आप अपना काइंडली नाम बता दीजिए और अपना क्वेश्चन माइक प्लीज
Sorry? Satoshi. Yeah, this is a very, very interesting question. No one knows who is Satoshi. Who is Satoshi? And that goes to the benefit of the Bitcoin blockchain, because when people trust Bitcoin, there is no face for Bitcoin. Satoshi is just an anonymous figure. There have been a lot of investigations coming from FIA. You may be more interested in finding the identity of the guy, but there are a lot of documentaries. People speculated at one time, they also speculated that maybe Elon Musk is Satoshi, but everyone, they tried, they refused the claim.
We traveled from store point store they used to store point. My question to you is, why did not make our own
Our own
ICU?
ICU.
ICO.
I don't know why we are.
Internet coin offering ICU.
Initial coin offering.
Yes.
Oh,
They will register all these.
So it's not a big deal. Making an ICO is nothing. All the code, everything, it's open source technology. Anyone can launch a coin. For example, if you are interested, you can very easily launch your own coin. The problem is not that you can launch a coin or you can create a coin. The problem is who will buy and who will invest in that coin, who will come.
People are interested in UK ICO, in Dubai ICO. Why we do not have a ICO? Right. You answer. Let us be logical. My third question is the era of quantum computing. The moment I think in next 6 months or time, Chennai are like we need to wait on all these questions was better about it. We do not get it understand in the future. It's the era of quantum computing now. I think in next 6 months or 1 year, so the quantum computing is happening. So what is the fate of our
Right. So this is a very interesting question. Most people, again, they don't realize that the Bitcoin and the Ethereum, the day they were launched and the current form, it has improved a lot. It has changed a lot. There are a lot of different small, tiny changes that are happening. So there is a very active community of developers who are well aware of all these problems and issues. And there are, for example, in the case of Bitcoin, there are Bitcoin improvement proposals. So they know if quantum computing comes, this elliptic curve cryptography on which all this chaining and everything is based, it can be cracked, right? So there are proposals, there are algorithms which are quantum safe. They exist, but the adoption, it will take some time, and because these are decentralized systems, no one is actively controlling these systems. So the proposals are out there. how long they take to adopt those proposals, and I'm sure they are at the forefront of all these technologies. They are well aware of all these problems, and in time, hopefully, they will switch to quantum safe cryptography.
Thank you, sir. Sir, you can take a question from the gentleman right in the first. Sir.
My session would be that future nature and it was an issue because it's going to be something very big. The future is there. We have to decide. We have to go there. We can't stop time at all. Future is there, but I would like a focused discussion of things. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We can take a question from the gentleman right in the front. Sir,
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. My name is Hassan. I run Cyber Cloud. We are a token issuer in Europe for the last 4 years. So we are bringing that knowledge to Pakistan. So we are very happy to see lots of traction is there. I have actually two major questions. One is on the technology side, which I think Dr. can answer, and one Chair Sir can answer on the regulations. As you know, Dr. that the Ethereum, you mentioned about Ethereum layer. So we are now at the layer 2 of Ethereum. And when the layer 1 was slowed down, so there was a loss of distrust. And then people moved to other networks. And layer 2 is doing well as of now. So when you put a light on us, rather than going on Ethereum network, other networks like Stellar or Solana, lots of traction is going on that direction. Especially the largest asset manager, BlackRock and the Rothschilds, they transferred 1.4 trillion on Stellar. So that means the traction is there on that direction. So we would like to know what are the pros and cons for that. And on the regulation side, sir, I have this question. Doctor mentioned about the whole process, and there is a role for a custodian. There's a role for a digital wallet. So where we are in terms of readiness, where we can bring our token technology and start using with the regulating custodians and digital wallets, and because we are the issuers, we need this enablement so that we can bring this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So, Doctor, technology side question.
Thank you very much. And it's great to see you guys coming to Pakistan. I know other companies too, they work in Europe and then they are into this business working with the banks. Regarding the layer 2, for most people in the room, the layer 2, I haven't explained it, but the layer 2 is important in the sense that it makes all the transactions cheap. Okay, the Ethereum blockchain or Solana blockchain, they are called layer 1 blockchains. They provide the most protection. The layer 2 is built on top of the layer 1 technologies. For example, if there is a layer 2, they will take a batch of transactions and then they will compress that batch and let's say put one hash of that batch on the layer 1 blockchain, for example, Ethereum blockchain or the Solana blockchain, right? So that's the concept of layer 2 blockchain. So layer 2 in terms of decentralization, obviously all the layer 2s, they lack decentralization because there is this batch processor and the aggregator and who are processing it. Coming back to Ethereum versus Solana. Ethereum, I think there are very strong developers, Vitalik Buterin, the Ethereum Foundation. They lead from the front in terms of the technology, in terms of making systems, the blockchain technology better. I think both are going to stay. The Ethereum, the price is not going up for the Ether. I don't know what are the structural reasons, but the market cap of Ether itself, for example, is less than $200 billion right now. The tokens it is providing security are worth more than the total market cap of Ethereum itself. So अगर हम इसकी ऐसे मिसाल लें कि एक security guard है जो खुद लेट से उसकी अपनी तनख्वाह कम है और उससे वो गोल्ड और बड़ी चीज़ों को वो प्रोटेक्ट कर रहा है. So I see Ethereum going in that direction. I don't know, I may be wrong, but all these alternatives are there. I cannot say definitely what's the best right now. Both are going to stay. Ethereum is not going anywhere. Solana is also not going anywhere. But the technology and the people behind Ethereum, I feel them more sound, more technically capable. The developers, they are very, very sound.
तो हमारी जुबान में कहते हैं मैनेजमेंट बिल्डिंग करवा देते हैं. So, Chairman sir.
Sorry about this. So yes, a new regulatory body has been set up called PIBARA. PIBARA's, it comes under their ambit. They're actually looking after both the issues that you have highlighted. How the interaction with equities and debt market is going to take place is very much uncharted territory at the moment. So tokenization as to how things develop, we yet to see how things develop. I'm sure there will be implication for SECP from the regulatory perspective, but we yet to come across it and we yet to deal with it. There's no certainty about it. And this is one of the reasons that we are actually holding sessions like this. So our workforces, can develop skills in this sector. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Sir, it is अपने audience के लिए और आपके लिए भी. This is very interesting that we have started getting these registrations from the outsiders as well. So we've got 25 guests which are out from outside of SECP. So we can take a question from the last one. Thank you. Please अपना नाम बताइए और अपना question डॉक्टर साहब के लिए.
So मेरा मतलब फर्स्ट है एजुकेशन डिपार्टमेंट से तो मेरी क्वेश्चन है वो है कि cryptocurrency incentive and that is anonymity कि आप फंड ट्रांसफर कर सकते हो किसी मेरे पास एक वॉलेट मिलर से तो तीन फंड पड़े हुए हैं अपना एड्रेस एक्सचेंज कर दूंगा किसी फैमिली मेंबर के साथ एंड के मुझे यूएस और चाइना वगैरह तो अगर ये मार्केट रेगुलेट हो जाती है तो मतलब ये मेरी गवर्नमेंट है have to do KYC in that time as well as your exchange register. तो anonymity का जो रोड हो रहा है इस can you expect that investment to Bitcoin because then they will do more that use in cross border fund transfer without having to do KYC. तो दूसरा क्वेश्चन है वो ये कि फिफ्टी ट्रेडिंग में सबसे ज्यादा स्कैम होता है पाकिस्तान में जितने भी फिफ्टी ट्रेडर्स हैं एक तो आपकी एलटीडी महंगा बेचते हैं इसका प्राइस 270 275 वो आपको 225 चार्ज करते हैं एक यूएसडी के टोटली अनरेगुलेटेड और उस वो मार्केट के एज अ रेगुलेटर हम इस तरह देख सकते हैं कि हमको कैसे रेगुलेट करें ताकि प्राइस जो है वो मेंटेन रहे और दूसरा स्कैम ना हो आपसे कोई पैसे लेके बाहर ना हो जाए. These are my two questions. तो अगर आप प्लीज आंसर कर सकते हैं.
Thank you very much. These are good questions. पहली चीज anonymity और so people often confuse anonymity with कुछ लोग प्राइवेसी के साथ भी उसको कंफ्यूज करते हैं कुछ बहुत सारी चीज़ों के साथ कंफ्यूज करते हैं. For most of the people who are sending money back home, anonymity is not their biggest issue. Okay, KYC could be कि अगर उन्होंने multiple exchanges के ऊपर KYC करनी है, but then for the customer जो solutions exist करते हैं remittances के जो stable coin rails use करते हैं, for example Philippines में या पाकिस्तान में भी लोग जिनके ऊपर काम कर रहे हैं, from the customer point of view it will be transparent. You have to go to your bank, you can fill it the way you fill your remittance form and everything. Back end के ऊपर बैंक will ensure कि वो सारी इंफॉर्मेशन जो है जो भी उसके वो जो ट्रैवल रूल्स हैं FATF के या कस्टमर की जो KYC वगैरह करनी है वो बैंक और दरमियान में ये जो इश्यूअर वगैरह इन्वॉल्व हैं वो करेंगे इंश्योर. And for the customer the money will land in the Pakistani bank in the very same way जिस तरह से वो उसको अभी रिसीव करते हैं. सो कस्टमर पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू के लिए उनका एक्सपीरियंस बैक एंड पे क्या होता है वो बैंक्स और जो इशूअर और जो नए प्लेयर्स आ रहे हैं मार्केट में वो उसको हैंडल करेंगे. सो द सॉल्यूशंस दे आर मूविंग इन दिस फॉर द पर्टिकुलरली फॉर द रेमिटेंसेस यूज केस. तो इस डायरेक्शन में जाएंगे. दूसरा आपका क्वेश्चन था जो सेकेंडरी मार्केट्स के ऊपर है P2P ट्रेडिंग लोग करते हैं. अनफॉर्चुनेटली उसका यही सोल्यूशन है कि जिन एक्सचेंजेस के ऊपर ये ट्रेडिंग होती है बाइनेंस के ऊपर मोस्टली होती है ये ट्रेडिंग पाकिस्तान में या जो और एक्सचेंजेस होती हैं दे आर सेंट्रलाइज्ड एक्सचेंजेस. देयर आर रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स ऑफ दीज एक्सचेंजेस इन पाकिस्तान. ये कंपनीज हैं मुझे एग्जैक्टली नहीं पता कि कहाँ ये रजिस्टर्ड है बाइनेंस इस तरह की और एक्सचेंजेस कहाँ पे रजिस्टर्ड हैं. And PIBARA ने इनको लाइसेंस भी इशू किया है. So primarily then it comes to the responsibility of making these exchanges responsible कि उनके प्लेटफॉर्म के ऊपर ये सारा कुछ क्यों हो रहा है या कैसे हो रहा है. I can give you an example. Regulation becomes challenging. For example ये जो हम सोशल मीडिया की रेगुलेशन की बात करते हैं, कंटेंट की बात करते हैं, फेसबुक या मेटा को, पीपल टेक देम टू द कोर्ट एंड दे से कि अच्छा हम तो कंटेंट प्रोवाइडर्स को स्पेस प्रोवाइड कर देते हैं, अब बच्चे देखते हैं उसको या जो भी करते हैं उसके जो भी नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट्स होते हैं, बट कोर्ट्स मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम दे आर नॉट बाइंग इट एंड दिस मोमेंटम इज बिल्डिंग ग्रोइंग एवरीवेयर। यही चीज़ इधर भी होनी है, अगर उनके प्लेटफॉर्म्स अनेबल कर रहे हैं इस तरह की चीज़ों को, एंड यू कैन होल्ड दैट प्लेटफॉर्म और एक्सचेंज accountable, then the problem maybe would be solved to some extent.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, due to paucity of time, हम इसको यहाँ पे conclude कर रहे हैं. We can share the contact details of Dr. साहब with his permission. और आप लोग अपने अपने सवाल डायरेक्ट इससे भी कर सकते हैं. We can further deliberate on this paper. So thank you once again, sir. आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. चेयरमैन साहब आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. इंतजार साहब आपका बहुत शुक्रिया. I would request the gentlemen to please come और हम डॉक्टर साहब के टोकन ऑफ एप्रिसिएशन पेश करते हैं. Please welcome. Sir, please. Thank you very much, sir. That brings to the conclusion of the ceremony. Thank you once again. And next month, inshallah, we will be looking forward to some